Hey, good afternoon. It's 3:06 in the afternoon. This is 99.3 FM, The Truth. We're so glad to have you with us on Mac's World right now. Mac kind of seems like he was losing his voice. His voice got deeper and raspier than normal, so I sent him home because I love him, and I want him to be well, and I want him to be a good broadcaster. So I kicked him out. I said, you go home and you get well. He really did. No, could you tell, Frank, that his voice didn't sound good?
Yeah. You look kind of pale, too.
Uh-oh. I was doing my best Mac impression earlier. Oh, thanks for that. I was doing my best Mac impression earlier, and it was a lot higher pitched. And then he started talking, and I realized that he didn't sound very good.
That must be because you're studying him.
I've become an apprentice of Mac. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But anyway, hey, welcome to Mac's World. Had a bit of a rough start there. Jeb might be a little bit distracted today. I apologize for that. We'll try to keep him focused. I've got multiple pencils on my desk ready to throw at Jeb. So, Jeb, we've decided that this is about I think we determined a couple days ago, you're 12 feet from the mic, so I just have to be able to throw 12 feet, but you have protective glass.
Yeah, I do have some protective glass. Actually, malfunction, so.
All right, well,
other than that. I'm working on it, though.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that you're working on it. Well, this is Mac's World. Regular cast of characters are here, as you can tell. Frank is with us. Jeb is here producing the broadcast today. Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, watching the chat, is also watching the Service Legends Truth Text Talk line, which you can send us a text at 515-809-0993 at any time during the show, and Bob is going to be good and ring the bell and make sure that we read your text. Of course, our friends at First Call Bail Bonds reminds you not to text and drive. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing well, and sometimes, I screen text depending on what people say.
I don't know that people know that. Yeah. Do they know that you screen? Well, maybe they realize if
it's not read, then they may know why.
You got screened. You just got screened. That's what just happened. So, and today our special guest is Joel Smith. Joel Smith is a franchise owner of 8 Papa Murphy's Pizzas restaurants. I don't say that very well because I'm not in that business. But Joel, welcome to the broadcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, today, earlier, you and I had lunch. Mm-hmm. And at the Christian Business Network lunch, that's every Wednesday at noon at the Pizza Ranch on 86th Street. And the third Wednesday of the month, we are attempting to have experts come in and speak to us. And today, you were that expert, and you spoke to us. And you did a good job, man.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, you talked about the narrow gate is what you talked about as a business principle, as a life principle, mm-hmm. And I found what you had to share really fascinating. But before we get to that, really quick, I want to remind people that today is a listener participation broadcast. I want to hear from you. So if you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are a business professional, if you're a business owner, if you're a manager, if you work, if somebody pays you to do something, this show is for you. If you're like Frank and you just hang around, this is not, you can't listen, Frank.
I get paid.
You do get paid. That's yeah.
It's double and triple what I started.
That's right. You just get those raises, buddy. You just keep getting those raises.
I think you give me 30 cents the other day.
I did, as a matter of fact.
Matt give me 60.
So it got doubled. We're doing well. So this broadcast is for you today. So I want you to be able to ask Joel questions about leadership, management, what the Bible has to say about that. So give Joel a call today at 515-244-0077. Or you, of course, can send us a text at 515-809-0993. Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 through 27 is what I'm going to read. And this is part of this. In fact, most of this is going to sound really familiar. But one of the things I learned today is that although there are many famous verses in this section of Matthew, we don't often think of them all going together. So I want you to listen. This is Matthew chapter 7, beginning in verse 13. The Bible says this. In fact, Jesus was speaking here. He said, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruits you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that is not good is thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruits you will recognize them. Jesus continues, every who is Lord in the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of the Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name did not drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a man whose knock rose and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundations on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine, says Jesus, and does not put them into practice is a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. Jesus said all that stuff. And he said all that stuff in Matthew, and it was put together all in Matthew. Have you ever noticed that all those different stories that we're familiar with, the narrow gate, the prophet, Lord, Lord, but don't really know the Father, all those things are connected. They're all those stories that we hear, I tend to hear them disconnected. And Joel, today you pointed out that they're all connected.
Yeah, they are all connected. And, I started off when I was preparing for this, I really wanted to have the theme of the narrow gate. And I read the beginning of these passages, and I just kind of kept going, and the light kind of came on. Like, wait, this is all lining up. These are all biblical principles that line up with business.
Right.
They line up with life. They line up with everything. That's what inspired to include the whole passage.
Yeah, and you pointed out at our business meeting earlier today, and Frank, you're familiar with the narrow gate, wide gate story, and most of the time when you hear that verse, don't you you just think of salvation, don't you? You think that there are some who will enter by the narrow gate, and most will go the way of the wide gate, and think only about salvation. I'm being honest, I do.
Well, yes, that's the traditional. That's the traditional version of the way I've read it.
But Joel pointed out here, Bob, you were leaning into the mic.
Yeah, because I think of it a little different.
How do you think about it?
I think of believers that in your walk, you must walk the narrow path or go through the narrow gate. And so it's a lifestyle, the way I see it.
Bob, man, you see how smart this guy is? Joel? This is why he a lot of people, Mac makes fun of you all the time because you're quiet, but when you say something, it's quite profound, honestly. But that's really true. And Joel, that's kind of what you pointed out today, that this is more to do with how we live than just the way we get in, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I agree. Just the term "the narrow gate" implies that it's the beginning of something. It's a gate that starts a journey or starts something on. We don't just start our salvation; we live it out as well. We're going to do a lot of things between the day we receive Christ as our Savior and the day we go home. And I think the same principle applies all the way through life. I think He gives us opportunities. He spurs us on to enter through gates, and it's different gates at different times. And I really think, like I was talking about earlier today, God gives us a choice, and He gives us a choice to follow Him or to go our own way.
Right.
And that narrow gate certainly represents the beginning of a journey, and across the board.
You talked a lot today earlier, Joel. Joel Smith is our guest, owner of many Papa Murphy's franchises, and you taught today business now. And you talked about the 80-20 principle. And we've heard that. I think most people have heard that phrase, 80-20. Mm-hmm. But we just sort of dismiss it. There's not much to apply there. But practically speaking, we know that phrase because we see it a lot of times in our life. You mentioned in church. most of us recognize that there are few people at church really getting all the stuff done. Right? Statistically, then it's probably 20% of the people doing all the work and 80% of the people just kind of floating along and being too. That happens a lot in church. But you applied this whole passage really talking about the 80% we will be mediocre. Talk to me about that.
Sure. Well, the 80-20 rule, I think, it is pretty interesting. The more I looked into it, the more I realized that it's everywhere. And it's not necessarily a mathematical formula. I don't think it's necessarily 80% and 20%, but it's a curve, and it's a tendency that travels, everywhere in our lives. And you were talking about church, and that's where I think I first heard it. 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work.
Right.
The other 80% of the people are doing 20% of the work.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. And so, when I read different passages, this, chapter 7, it's me that, there's a great way to do this. And there's a lot of bad ways to do this.
We're going to talk more about that with Joel Smith, Papa Murphy's Pizza, and we're going to talk about the narrow gate and the wide gate and how you can be an exceptional person rather than just a mediocre person. I want to be exceptional, but mediocre seems so comfortable, doesn't it?
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth 93 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rock Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for the opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Can you make money and honor God at the same time? Can you be a good business person and honor God? That's the question that we've got in front of you today. I want to know, can you be a Christian as a business person? And are those two things not mutually exclusive? Are they not separate things? Like, I'm a Christian on Sundays, but I work in my professional life the rest of the week. I run my company by business principles over here, and I don't really think that God has anything to say about that. God only has anything to say about my salvation and my eternal life. The Bible doesn't really have anything to say about my professional life, my business world, how I act at work, how I run my company, how I serve my employer, how I serve my employees, all those things. God doesn't have anything to say about that, does he? Well, our guest today is Joel Smith. He owns several Papa Murphy's pizza franchises here in Central Iowa in the Des Moines metro area. And he seems to think that the Bible has something to say about how we run our businesses, how we treat our fellow coworkers, how we treat our employees, how we treat our employers, how we live our lives. And he was our speaker at the Christian Business Network this past Wednesday. In fact, just today. I'm saying past Wednesday because I have a feeling that we're going to rebroadcast this on Saturday. So if it's not Wednesday and it's not 3:22 in the afternoon and you're listening to me, it's probably Saturday. Hi. On a Saturday. But Joel, you were talking with us earlier today about Jesus talked about the narrow gate in Matthew chapter 7, and we're familiar with that. But this principle of narrow gate, this 80-20 principle, starts to unleash something about how we are to operate as business people, as workers, as business owners, as professionals, in this kind of way. Unpack that a little bit for me.
Well, sure. I think the narrow gate idea and the 80-20 principle idea represents intentionality. It represents what your point of focus is about. If we're focused on Christ and we're focused on being obedient and finding out what God has for our life and for our business, we're going to experience the consequences that comes from that, not only in ourselves, but we're also going to experience it eternally because we're joining forces with God and we're being a part of His will. We're teaming up with Him to fulfill the Great Commission, and I really believe that that there's a lot of really wrong ways for us to do that. There's a lot of ways that aren't best to do that, and I think there's ways that God would have specifically for us, and there's universal principles in the Bible that give all of us an idea of what we need to stand on in order to achieve that.
Well, let me ask you. Let me take a couple steps back here, Joel. By the way, Joel is spelled Joel. By the way, Jeb. And why do you care about this stuff? Why do you, Joel Smith, even care about best practices, living as a Christian? Why does any of this matter to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, as an adult, I've been on both sides of the line. I've been a non-believer and struggled to try to make sense out of that very question.
Yeah,
and I've also been a believer, and I understand what it means to be lost. I understand what it means to be wandering around in the wide path, and for me, that's personal. I was in my early 20s and a little clueless, lost. I didn't have the Lord. I didn't have a direction. I had been disappointed in so many areas of my life, and for me, that's my target group. The Lord was able to change my heart, change my life, give me a whole new perspective on work, on life, and me, it's a way of payback. I do have a passion for blue collar workers. That's how I started. I'm not doing anything to do with my college education, and for me, there's a lot of biblical principles out there that people need to know. There's a lot of great business principles out there that people need to know. There's and somebody's got to tell them. Somebody's got to get this message out and help people get to the next level.
You said something the other day, Joel, in our lunch, at our Christian Business Network lunch, that really resonated with me, because I went to a fast food restaurant after that and was experiencing some terrible customer service. But one of the things that you said, Joel, was that if you want to make $1 million and you don't have a college education, the best place to do that is in a restaurant, is in the restaurant industry, maybe at Papa Murphy's or Chick-fil-A, or right at a quick service restaurant possibly. And that really resonated with me. Tell me what you mean by that.
Sure. Well, when you look at the environment of the restaurant industry, and I don't think it's limited to the restaurant industry, I think it's retail, it's a lot of industries that don't require higher education. I think when you look at that, services, but we don't really have the best reputation. Everybody makes jokes about fast food restaurants and people that end up being the fry guy and all that. But the truth is that there's an incredible opportunity in this environment. You don't have to be educated, but you do have to be determined. Yeah, you don't have to be a Christian necessarily, but you have to have good character. And there's one thing that I know about our industry, and that is that this industry is screaming out for hard workers. It's screaming out for reliable people that are going to be there. It's screaming out for people of character because, quite frankly, it's a little bit harder to find in this industry. And so, I tell a story of sometimes about if I got hired at McDonald's as a fry guy, I would make sure that I was the best fry guy they've ever seen. And I wouldn't think it'd be long before they would promote me to sandwiches. And then I would make sure I was the best sandwich guy that they've ever seen.
Right.
And then I would move up to maybe a counter person. And with that philosophy, working hard and doing your best for other people and putting yourself out there, I think that's going to move you up the ladder quickly. And you don't have to have an education to do that.
Well, and that is Joel Smith is our guest. He now owns 8 Papa Murphy pizza restaurants here in central Iowa. Probably the Pizza Murphy restaurant that people are going to pick up their pizza from on the way home tonight to take home to their family is going to be owned by you, and you've done that. You've worked your way up, but you did it through the narrow gate, and we're going to talk about that. Frank, you got a question?
Well, I've heard that there's success to be had in the restaurant industry, but I generally find that people that do that are really putting in a ton of hours, particularly a manager, may put in 60 to 80 hours a week. And you can have success, but do you sometimes pay for it on the other end of family relationships, et cetera, et cetera? So where do you put that balance at between, I can have a successful living in the restaurant industry, but it might come to the cost of my family. So where do you put that balance?
Sure, that's a great question. And I have started from that level, and I have had seasons in my life a lot, and there's been some things that have been compromised. Fortunately for me, a lot of my earlier times where I was putting in all the hours and doing a lot of that work came before I had any children. That helped a lot. But really, you don't have to kill yourself to be successful. And I think that's a narrow gate philosophy, to be honest. I think balance is important. I think setting priorities are important. Applying your time to the things that are most important is important. I've seen a lot of restaurant managers, restaurant owners spin out of control, really struggle to get a lot of things done, put in way more time than they should. And typically, to be honest, they're following a wide path. They're doing it a different way.
See, and that seems so, and I really appreciate Frank's question, because that would seem like, listening to you, that's what we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to work in frenzy, work really hard, be super diligent, put more in than we're getting out, that kind of stuff. But explain to me, how is that not the narrow way? I mean, how is that not, because that's not the average, right? I mean, the average person doesn't necessarily do that. So that's being maybe above average, but explain to me how that's not a good thing.
Sure. Well, when you put everything you have into your business, there's way too many other things that suffer. First of all, your health can suffer. You can your personal life will suffer. Balance is really important. You have to be able to have a healthy life, a happy life, in order to be successful and happy in your work. It's really important. In our company, our managers are typically they're salaried at around 50 hours a week, and we do the best that we can to try to make sure that our managers don't work more than that. When they work more than that, they get tired. They lose their effectiveness. They come to work and they're grumpy. They're just less effective, and they're not sharp on the brain, and they're just not sharp to their employees. They're not taking care of business like they need to be. So it is really important that when we come to work and we work hard, and when we go home, we rest hard.
What is it going to take for us to be narrow gate people? Now that's a weird phrase. It means something to me now after our lunch, but can I work in my job as a manager, as an employee, as a business owner? I want you to, if you've got questions for Joel, I want you to feel free that you can call in at 515-244-0077. We'd love to hear from you. Hear your input on this. You know, as Christians, how do we manage our family life, our business life? How do we honor God in the workplace? How do we honor God as business people? We want to hear from you, 515-244-0077, or you can send us a text at the Service Legends Truth text line, 515-809-0993 is that text line. And remember, first call bail bonds reminds you not to text and drive. Frank.
Well, on the opposite end of the spectrum of what I spoke about is the person that's diving into work and burning the candles at both ends. Then you have that other type of person who's wanting to put in the minimum effort but draw out the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wants to be a millionaire, but he don't want to put in the hard work it takes to do it. What advice do you have for that type of person?
Yeah, good question. I think that applies all the way up the ladder from the fry guy or the pizza maker all the way up to the owners. You know, that can apply all the way across. In our company, we call that the 60-90 effect.
Okay.
And here's
different than the 80-20.
Yeah, a little bit different. But here's how this works. If you allow somebody to work at 60%, they will. If you work 80%, they may. If they do, reward them. If they don't, let them move on to someplace else. And part of this is setting expectations, and it's also helping to set a standard so that people know what excellence is. You know, if we work hard continually, we come to work, and each day we apply our efforts, we will see rewards down the road. We're going to see the fruits of that. We're going to see the people around us start to respect us more. We're going to gain credibility in the eyes of other people, and we're going to have more opportunities. Kind of like we said before, you can write your own ticket if you have these characteristics in your workplace.
Joel Smith is our guest. He owns 8 Papa Murphy's pizza franchises here in the Des Moines area, and he's talking to us about how we can honor God in business life. Is that even possible? What do you think? 515 93 FM. The Truth.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
The ease of our job actually is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 20% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, You come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home. And we're betting about heat going to come back on. Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team that I work with.
I'm my ambassador of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Good afternoon, 21 minutes before the top of the hour, and then Salem Radio Network News. This is Max World Live on 99.3 FM The Truth. I'm Chris Roloff. Mac felt sick, so I told him to go home. I said, get out of here, boy. You sound terrible. So he went ahead and went home. Frank is here. Frank stuck around. I couldn't get him to leave. He looks kind of pale. He looked kind of sick, but he wouldn't leave. So, Frank, you're still here.
Maybe Mac, whatever he had, was rubbing.
And you're watching the Service Legends Truth text at 515-809-0993. They can text directly to you, Bob, and ask you any question that people might want to know. Maybe the color of your hat today.
Or you mean some type of scientific forensic question?
Or a scientific forensic question, yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
What is in pizza dough?
That maybe our guest might know that.
Yeah.
Our special guest today is Joel Smith, Papa Murphy's Pizza franchise owner. He owns 8 franchises here in the Des Moines metro area, and you're probably going to pick up a Papa Murphy's Pizza on the way home tonight to surprise your family. And that, if you do that, Joel would be appreciative of that. He would say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, just like that. So when you walk in and you walk back out, and Papa Murphy's is funny because we had Joe mention this at our business networking lunch. Papa Murphy's is you're a take and bake restaurant.
That's right.
Is that the right phrase?
Take and bake is the phrase. Yes.
Take and bake is the phrase, which is an interesting concept. If you go in and order a large pepperoni pizza from Papa Murphy's, they're going to hand it to you uncooked. So you got to be ready for that.
That's right.
It's like, this is going to sound bad. Okay, don't let Joel hear this. It always makes me think of Subway. It's like the Subway of pizza because you can see them put all the stuff because it's all fresh. You know, a lot of times you go to like some other kind of pizza place and you just don't see them make it. If they deliver, you just get a hot pizza delivered to you, which is nice, right? What's cool, Papa Murphy's, you can see them put all the stuff on. Now, Joel, do you guys ever just have people do the sort of Subway thing where they go, all right, let's start with some red sauce, and you put some cheese on there? That'd probably be annoying if someone ordered like that, right?
Yeah, that's not really the way to order it. Order it ahead of time, but we do have that happen. Hey, can you toss a little bit more cheese on that for me?
Right. So. But it's neat because you can see all the food being prepared and it's fresh, and you get a really fresh pizza. And I've told this story before, Joel, and that is my daughter, who is now 8. I brought a Papa Murphy's pizza home, and we put it in the oven. This is the first time she'd ever had Papa Murphy's pizza. Put it in the oven, pulled it out, we cut it up, and she started eating it. And she said, Dad, this is the best frozen pizza I've ever had. And I said, well, that's why it's not frozen. That's why it was so good, because we had never had take and bake before in her life, and now she prefers Papa Murphy's over anything else.
And it's hot. I mean, you transport it from the store to your home when it's cooked already.
Right.
And then you got cold pizza.
That's right.
Nothing worse than that.
And this, with Papa Murphy's, you put it in fresh and raw. It's easy to do. Even an idiot like me, $4.25.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on it, and you're good to go. And then you look like a hero, like you made pizza. See, dads, single dads, you want to be a hero tonight, buddy. Papa Murphy's Pizza. Okay, but we're not here to talk about your food, Joel. We're actually here.
Sure we are. No. I do appreciate the kind words, though.
Yeah. But you're a neat guy. I like you, Joel. You and I have got to know each other a little bit over the last couple of years, and you spoke today at the Christian Business Networking Lunch that we have every Wednesday. And you shared with us some principles, this 80-20 principle, and you told me that this is actually what you teach your managers, the people in your restaurants. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of the framework by which we do most of our leadership training. We do leadership training and we do management training within our company to our staff, to our management staff, and we use a version of the 80-20 principle with that. And
what is, help me? Well, I know. See, that's the problem with knowing ahead of time. But tell me, like I don't know. What are you talking about? What is someone living at 80%? What does that look like?
Sure. Well, I'll kind of tell you how we teach it in our classes. So you can take any group of people or any group of anything, whether it be restaurant managers in the Des Moines area or racehorses or college football teams. It doesn't matter. You can take anything and you can look at them and you can. There's a mathematical principle that's always true, and that is that the bottom 80% of all of those, however you rate those, isn't good enough to be in the top 20%. Is that right? That makes sense. And if it were, it would be in the top 20% and knock somebody else down, right?
That's right. That's right. So math, it's amazing.
When we look around at the restaurant business, the restaurant industry, whether it be in the Des Moines area or anywhere, what you're going to find is that the majority of restaurant managers or whoever you're evaluating aren't nearly as good as they could be. And we kind of call that the mediocre and or the bottom 80%. Okay, so if you look at the bottom 80%, those are the people that just aren't quite doing what's required to be in the top 20%. And so we ask a question, and that question is, what is required to be in that bottom 80%, the people that aren't quite there? And the most profound answer that we've come up with is that if you want to be mediocre, just do what comes natural. It's pretty simple. Just do what comes natural, right? Don't think about it. Just do what you've always done. Do what comes easiest. Do what feels right at the time, or do what you've been taught. Just do what comes natural, and you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to be mediocre at best. So.
Well, there's a principle. I don't know if it relates to this at all, but I was told this when I was about 18 years old, thinking about entering into marriage, and I had someone come to me in the church, an elder, wiser person than I, and was talking about a principle, something similar to that. They said in a marriage, I think at the time it was put in 90 or put in 90, take out 10. And if each party, male and female, does that, everybody ends up with 100%. I guess you could say the same thing, 80-20. It's the idea that put something always more into what you're doing than what you're taking out. That's how you're going to have a success. If you're faithful with the little things in life, as you said, be the best French fry short order cook you can be. You're faithful in that little thing. God gives you more things, of more substantial things to be over. But he's not going to do that if you're not faithful in the little things.
Well, and I think too, Joel, that you said something that's slightly more profound than that. And I think that for some of us, doing what comes natural might seem impressive to other people. Don't listen, Frank. Don't listen, Bob. Mac, don't listen to this. So think of Mac for a second. Mac makes radio look really, really, really easy because it comes natural to him. And he's by no means mediocre in what he does. But I can tell, as a guy who's around Mac all the time, when he's focused, when he's laser focused, when he's put in the stuff ahead of time, when he knows exactly what he's talking about, he's fired up, he's on passion, he's on mission, he knows exactly what he's going to do. Holy cow, these radio broadcasts are through the roof. When he just shows up and does what's natural, the radio programs are better than most because Mac is an incredible broadcaster, but he's still doing what's natural. So I think there's something, Mac, you didn't hear that. And there's something that at the core of that's fascinating to me. Because some of us do what's natural, and by other people's standards, it may seem impressive, but it's still us being mediocre. Do you find that to be true, Joel?
Oh, I do. We all have different talents in different areas. We can disguise ourselves pretty well, usually. And but yeah, I think when we do what comes natural, we're settling.
Yeah,
we're settling for the wide path. We're settling for something less than what God would have for us.
Yeah, in my industry, in radio, there's a lot of people that can do things. There are salespeople, advertising salespeople, marketing people, script writing people, production people, a lot of people in our industry that have natural gifts. They're just predisposed to do a lot of things really, really well. And when they do those things just by what comes natural, they're only putting out their 80%. They're not operating at that 20%. So I think one of the things that's fascinating about what you're saying, Joel, is you can apply this to wherever you're at. There is a 20% version of you in a sense. There's a version of me that's exceptional. There's a version of you that's exceptional. And I want to know, how do I do that? How do I be the 20% version of Chris Roloff? I want to find out about that here with Joel on 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News are going to let us know what's going on. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Tonight, after your Wednesday night church service, there's going to be a thing on television, and there's going to be these two people, and they're going to lie, and they're going to talk to each other into some microphones. Don't watch it. You know what I'm talking about. Don't watch the debate. I'm going to try to resist. I want to really bad, but I'm going to try to resist.
But you'll be glued there, won't you?
But thankfully, tonight at Westkirk Presbyterian Church, we have better things to do. We're going to be studying the book of Job. We're going to be singing songs together. We're going to be eating at church together. I'm going to be thinking about good things. I'm not going to be thinking about the silly debate. This is Mac's World Live. I'm Chris Roloff, filling in for Mac. Mac was sick, so I told him to go home, and he obeyed me. That's how powerful I am.
That's a news flash. He obeyed.
Oh, Oh, that's my happy place right there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay right there. We got to do a radio program, but that was my happy place. Joel Smith is our guest. Frank, of course, is here. Bob is here. Jeb is producing. Ann is here. Hi, Ann. Hi, guys. Nobody can hear Ann, but she's here. And Joel, we were talking about this. You own multiple Papa Murphy's franchise restaurants here in Des Moines area, and you train your people in the way that they should go. And you talk to them about 80% and the 20%. And we were talking just before the break that most of us, I think, function in that 80% where we're just mediocre. We talked about that, and you taught us earlier today that being mediocre is just doing what's natural. In your work life, in your professional life, in your whatever life. If you're just doing what comes natural, if you're doing what's easy, you're going to be fine. In a sense, you're going to be mediocre. But how do we get to that 20% if we want to be exceptional? What do we have to do to be exceptional in work, in life? What do we need to do?
Well, if you're going to have, you've got to give up. So I think
no. See, I quit. I'm done. It was all fine. I thought I asked him an easy question, Bob, and then he says I have to give something up. And Jesus said that to the rich young ruler. He didn't like that either. Sorry, Joel. That was just so radical. I had to stop you. Keep going. Tell me the pain. What do I have to give up?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, when we look at the narrow gate principle and the wide gate, it's really easy to walk through the wide gate. It's the gate that everyone else walks through. All the mediocre people walk through that. That's simple. It's easy. And to follow that wide path is simple and easy as well. But there's a lot of really appealing things on that path. There's it's simplicity. It's comfort often. It's popularity, it's whatever. But sometimes we need to give those up. Those need to not be what we're pursuing. I think if we truly want to enter through the narrow gate and walk down the narrow path, I think we need to be mission minded. I think our hearts need to be in line with Christ. Our hearts need to be in line with the fellow believers that we're working next to or working with, if we're blessed to have those people, and there needs to be a purpose. If there's no purpose, we're leaving the outcome up to chance. And so, for myself, I know what it's like not to have a purpose, and I understand now what it's like to have a purpose, and so that's what drives me.
Well, there's some people in life that skate through life, whether it's in business, in school, whatever. And I'll use the school analogy. They're the proverbial C student. They just, they're not the F student. And it takes some effort to go from an F to a C. I mean, F and D is like the lower rung of the ladder. Mm-hmm. And you have to put out some minimal effort to be successful in life. So where do you draw that distinction? Is there any distinction in this 80% between the lower rung of that 80% and the higher rung of that 80%? Because the 80% are all, with a little more effort, they might move into that. But you're not going to find somebody that's in the lower 10% all of a sudden jump up to the top 20%. It's going to take a Herculean effort to do that. But those people... it's said that there's 6 inches difference between a kick in the rear and a pat on the back. That pat on the back might push that person up to the higher echelon of that 20%.
Yeah. I think that grace doesn't have any bounds, though. I think people can change. Their hearts can change. Their entire purpose in life can change. And I think you can go from being the most lost of the lost to walk through, that gate, the narrow gate. I think you can do that. I think there's a lot of people out there that would agree and have made that, that transition.
Well, and I think to some degree and this is part of what was so profound to me earlier today, Joel, is that most of the time when we hear people talk about the 80%, the 20%, the mediocre, the exceptional, we tend to covet. Remember when Mac talked about this?
About coveting.
We can sin by saying, well, the 20% is the thing that is always above me. It's always the thing that's better than me because John over there or Cindy over there, she's in the 20%, and I could never be in the 20% because I could never be like Cindy or I could never be like John. That's a form of covetousness in a sense because you're saying that you're denying what God has created you to be. I've denied what God has created me to be. and I'm comparing myself to what God has created Cindy to be or what God has created Johnny to be, and we're looking at what Johnny or Cindy are and what God created them to do. But I think one of the profound things that I heard from you today at lunch, Joel, is that 80-20 principle is something that I can take and I can apply to me. Am I being the mediocre version of Chris? Or am I being the exceptional version of Chris? And one of the things that you said was that we need to be mission focused. We need to find out how God wants us to be, and we need to follow that. So we need to do some self-introspection, right? The other thing is that we need to be scriptural. And that's a big deal. We don't take that too seriously. You know, a lot of us, even as Christians, we think, well, I know the basics. I know God loves me. Jesus died for me. I'm going to heaven when I die. There's going to be a rapture. I'll be carried away. Whatever the thing is, I believe I got those things down. The Bible has nothing to say about this, but the Bible does have something to say. Is that right?
Oh, sure. The Bible has much to say about that. I think for a lot of people, they find it difficult to really navigate through all of the words in the Bible. Sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense, and so I think they miss out on that. But I will say that the Bible teaches on every area of business that I've ever studied. I'm sure other people would say the same thing, but the Bible has general principles that apply to everyone. It also has specific revelation that apply to us individually as well. God speaks to us where we're at, and if you dig, if you read, if you pay attention to what experts have to say about business, and listen closely, and find out what the Bible has to say. There's tons of resources. There's books you can read, tons of books. There's podcasts you can listen to. There's radio stations you can listen to.
Well, listen to 99.3 FM. Well, Joel, we're unfortunately a little bit out of time here. I want you to come back sometime. Will you do that for me?
I'd love to.
I have so much more I want to learn from Joel. If you want to meet Joel personally and you're in a professional situation, you're a business owner, I invite you to come. Actually, every Wednesday, we meet, the Christian Business Network meets. If you want to live by biblical principles as a Christian, join us every Wednesday at noon at the Pizza Ranch on 86th Street, and a group of Christian businessmen and women get together and we work on one another. We encourage one another to grow in the faith. Salem Radio Network News is coming up next, right here on 99.3 FM, The Truth.